Hi, I'm Jade.
And I'm Amal. We're female entrepreneurs and body transformation experts.
Welcome back to our third feature on Stylerunner Health Clubs, and today we're going to be talking about your introduction to flexible dieting.
I'm super excited for this segment because it's everything that Equilition preaches.
It is, and I feel like there's so much misinformation around flexible dieting, so we're here to clear the air today. And speaking of Stylerunner, I don't know if anyone has noticed, but we've done a little bit of a haul today. So we're in our new Stylerunner gear. We're very mismatched vibes.
I know.
I've gone for comfort. Amal is glam today.
I seriously love this shirt. Okay, sorry. Please excuse my bandage.
We have to address it.
We've got to address it. I've burnt myself yesterday, so if you see me raise my hand, it's just a bandage.
So today, as we said, we're going to be talking all things flexible dieting, which essentially is what we preach at Equilition. So it's a very science-based and balanced approach to nutrition, and we're really excited to share a little bit more.
So to kickstart this segment, I think it's really important to just give you a bit of background history on both Jade and I, and what our dieting history was like and how we diet now. So for those that don't know, Jade and I were fitness models once upon a time. We both have gone through our own transformations and have collectively lost 50 kilos.
Go us.
Yes, go us.
So basically when we first started dieting, we, like many dieters out there, especially being female, it started for us at a super young age. So I remember I started to become body conscious at around like 8, 9, like when I was really, really young in primary school. And for me, body conscious just meant noticing that a lot of my friends, because when you're young, a lot of people are just naturally built quite lean. I wasn't. I had a little bit of cushion around everywhere. Actually, there's a lot to love.
I was just about to say that, a lot to love.
There was a lot to love. And then as I progressively went through like primary school and high school, I was just one of those fluctuators, and I didn't really know how or why, but my body just fluctuated until year 12, when I started to take more of like an athletic form, and I got quite lean and slender sort of thing just by watching what I was eating and exercising a lot. And that's when I think I became really, I would say, obsessive about dieting.
Yeah, and I think for me, I was always the larger girl when I was younger, so I was overweight for most of my childhood, and I think it all started when I started becoming bullied at school. So I know as a young age, kids don't mean to call you fat, and they don't do it in like a mean way, but it happened. And I think that was my motivation to get started and to, try and learn about nutrition and fitness and apply whatever was out there to my lifestyle. And that's what Jade and I had in common. We were both the girls that were always on a diet. Yeah.
And I remember we were always going through the latest fad, whether that be meal replacements, supplementation, restrictive eating, clean eating.
Oh, that was at the same time.
That was literally our whole journey. It was beginning through every single fad under the sun, just trying to find the answer.
Yeah.
So essentially that's how we started in the health and fitness industry. We began fitness modeling under a really rigid regime. And when I say rigid, we spoke about this in our previous video, but our diet consisted of white fish, oats, egg whites, broccoli, bit of salmon at times, protein powder, and that was about it.
No cheat meals, guys.
No cheat meals. There was no variety. There was no balance, and most importantly, no sustainability. No. So then after our first fitness modeling show, we dieted like that for 6 months straight. And I know it doesn't in theory sound like a long period of time, but when you're that rigid, not only in the realms of your diet, but then also like excluding yourself from social agendas and stuff like that, it really took a toll on us. And after 6 months of giving what we felt like was 200% to everything that we were supposed to be doing by the bodybuilding books, we just didn't see the results that we're after. And we knew something was wrong, but we just knew we hadn't quite hit the nail on the head when it came to nutrition. So then we sought to get educated. So we began dieting for our next show under a science-based approach.
And that's what brings us to flexible dieting. So we've now been flexible dieting for a good, I think, 5 years.
Yeah.
And not only has it transformed our bodies, our body composition, but it has also transformed our mindset and our relationship with food. Prior to this, we, experienced binge eating disorders, we experienced being scared of food, restrictive eating, and that all came down to the concept of clean eating and just pure restriction. And so I would say flexible dieting saved our lives.
It really did. And now obviously it's what we preach at the core of the existence of Equilition and transforming other bodies like worldwide.
So have you ever thought, how does my skinny friend get to eat McDonald's and still look the way that she does?
This is how I always explain it to people, because I really resonated with understanding nutrition and then sort of applying it in like everyday life when I first learned about flexible dieting.
When you understand the science of
everything
nutrition,
makes sense.
Everything makes sense. everything.
Yeah. So I always think about, I had this one girlfriend at school, and which was one of my best friends, and she was always so thin and she could eat whatever she wants and she never got fat. And I was like, how? But then learning the science of nutrition, you really understand that. So essentially, in a nutshell, flexible dieting is understanding food as the body sees it. So your body doesn't see food as good or bad, which totally makes sense. It's a very simple science, but it's something that a lot of people don't really quite grasp. But your body doesn't recognize food as good or bad. It recognizes it for its numeric value, which is protein, fats, and carbs. And whether you lose weight or whether you gain weight, it all boils down to calories in versus calories out. So don't mistaken calories in versus calories out for, you shouldn't eat the good stuff, or you should neglect nutrient density. You by all means should not, but it just means that you can have a bit of balance. And that's what we experienced when we first sort of entered into this world of flexible dieting. It was like, you can have it. And that was baffling for us.
Exactly. So to put it into a more technical perspective, everyone has a BMR, which is basal metabolic rate. So that's the amount of calories that your body burns just living. So if you were to lay in bed all day and not do anything, that's how many calories you would burn just for your organs to function and just for you to live.
So second to that, you've got your TDEE, which is your total daily energy expenditure. And that's the amount of calories that your body burns in light of all your exercise and just general day-to-day movements. So things like, this is called your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And that's things like, if you were to go put the washing out, or if you were just to do a general movement to the kitchen or something like that, all those calories accumulated plus any exercise that you do on top of that equates to your total daily energy expenditure.
So in simple, if you want to put on weight, so if you're looking at muscle gain, you need to be eating in a calorie surplus. So you need to be eating more than your TDEE, so the amount of calories that you burn on a daily basis. If you'd like to lose fat or lose weight, you need to be eating in a calorie deficit, so eating below the energy expenditure every day. However, you don't want to go too low where you're eating close to your BMR, because then that starts to affect your body function and your organs.
And that's why it's pretty mind-blowing when you think about people putting themselves on 1,200 calorie diets, because that's not only far less than your total daily energy expenditure, but it's also far less than a lot of people's BMRs.
Yeah.
So it's a very critical sort of number to be putting yourself on. Essentially what happens is your body makes adaptations to this particular number. So if you're eating too less for too long a period of time, your body sort of becomes like a super efficient hybrid car. So you sort of learn to do more with less fuel. And in the context of your body, that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. That means everything's slowing down. So when you sort of hear of people who go on really aggressive diets and they do a quick rapid regain of weight, that's usually why. It's because they've adjusted to such a low amount, and then when they resume to like normal eating, they're put on a stack of weight.
Yeah, and for females, have you ever thought, why do I lose my periods when I'm dieting? It's when you diet so aggressively that your organs are not functioning at their optimum anymore, because you're not feeding your body with enough energy to allow
essentially like a survival mode. I even remember when Amal and I were competing, not only was our menstrual cycle affected when we were eating really, really low calories, because when we first prepped on our really restrictive regime, we were on about 800 calories for a long period of time. It's really scary. I lost my hair. You lost your fucking brain.
I lost my mind.
She was like,
she was holding her phone and she'd be like, I just can't find my phone.
I was really like, I was a zombie.
Yeah, you were eating a lot less calories than I was.
Yeah,
because you were eating no carbs back in the clean eating days.
Yeah, so that's how you would diet. And your body even doesn't reduce fat optimally. You kind of get this really like skinny fat sort of look.
It's because your body's holding on to absolutely everything just to survive. So it is survival mode.
Yeah, it is.
So on top of that, your body then requires a certain amount of protein, fats, carbs, and fiber.
And this is the interesting part, because what we love about flexible dieting is it sort of sees that there's a number of ways to skin a cat, but the most optimal way for sustainability, for just happiness of mind and just peace while you're dieting, is to do it in a really balanced method. So an 80-20 approach is what we preach.
So you're getting enough of the good stuff on a daily basis, but you're still allowing yourself to have that daily treat as well, which is exciting.
Yeah, so essentially you want to comprise your diet of a lot of lean meats. The best protein sources are things like chicken breast, Greek yogurt, white fish, lean cut beefs, just things that are really high in protein and lower in fat. That's going to give you more bang for your buck when it comes to protein sources. So fat is 9 calories per gram, as opposed to protein and carbs, which is 4 calories per gram. So your fat portion of your day is a little lesser
Yeah.
to say protein and carbs, obviously because of the calorie vilification.
And because of that, it then makes sense as to why you can't be eating only McDonald's and KFC and all these junk foods, because they're higher in fat. And if you were to eat those particular foods, you can't achieve hitting your other numbers, which is your protein, your fibers, and your carbs as well.
Everyone is different. That's a really important thing to note about flexible dieting is everyone
has a unique number to themselves.
Even when it comes to an optimal macro split, which is protein, fats, and carbs. So when you hear people talk about macros, they're talking about macronutrients, which is protein, fats, and carbs.
Yeah.
So even in terms of split, someone who has, more muscle might require more protein. Someone who's larger in weight might require more protein, et cetera, et cetera. So every single person has a very unique number. So if you come to this video to find out your number, unfortunately, I wish we could, but we can't give it to you because everyone is different, and there's a number of considerations.
There's a lot of factors.
Even in Evolution, like we have a really comprehensive questionnaire that we have our clients fill out beforehand, and the reason being is because it's not just surface level when it comes to making those calculations. There's so many more things.
We even consider your previous diet and history, because that can impact your metabolic rate, which is really important as well.
Not only that, but even like the strategy as well. Like if someone is just sort of banging their head against a wall, just trying to get a good relationship with food, but they perhaps don't have one, then launching straight into fat loss might not be the most optimal thing to do, for example. So everyone has an ideal number that they should hit. So in a nutshell, we would say, and as I mentioned, every single person is different. The most optimal sort of macro split would be roughly,
I would say about 30% protein, around the 45% for carbs, and maybe around the 25 to 30% for fats.
So as a rule of thumb, we always say to our clients, stick to your calories, keep within a 40 under or over range, give or take. Always make sure you can as closely as possible hit your protein intake goal.
Protein is priority.
It is. Keep fats between 20 to 30%, and then carbs will make up the remainder. So each macronutrient has sort of like an optimal functionality in the body. So we usually say that protein is optimal for
body composition.
Body composition.
Muscle retention, recovery.
That's it. And then in terms of fat, as a female, it's really important for your hormones. And then carbs, think of them as like your energy source, like your brain fuel, your body momentum, like everything in terms of energy, that's where your carbs are.
So simply, if you want to lose weight, or if you want to put on weight, you need to be eating in a calorie deficit or a calorie surplus. But if you want to work on body composition and achieve fat loss over weight loss, or muscle gain over fat gain, you need to be hitting your macronutrients. So that's as simple as it gets.
And when you think about the simple science in the context of other diets and why they may perhaps work, everything makes sense. Like I remember thinking, low carb, well then why would that work? Well, you're cutting out a whole macronutrient in your diet, so essentially you're reducing your calories. Even keto, cutting out a whole macronutrient in your diet, therefore it's lesser calories. So it's not necessarily what you're eating that is causing weight gain and weight loss, it's the
numbers.
amount.
It's the numbers game.
And then in saying that as well, like I mentioned earlier, that's not to neglect your micronutrients as well. So micronutrients is super important as well. And the best way I think to regulate it, and what we recommend, is by hitting your fiber goal. So your fiber goal should be, I think for females, around say 20 grams, let's say. And fiber comes from a lot of really nutrient dense sources. So a lot of fruits and veggies. And that's why when you're paying close attention to ticking the boxes and hitting your numbers, more than likely you're going to encompass a really balanced diet anyway. So it's not going to be necessarily like overloaded in fruit or overloaded in vegetables. But because you are sort of aiming to hit that 20 gram a day mark, then chances are you're getting a really good variety of foods, and then also like the fruits and veggies and whatnot in your fiber goal.
And aside from like the numbers, the most sustainable diet is a balanced approach.
For sure.
Like imagine, I know like a majority of you girls are probably young, or you guys are even mums, but you simply can't raise a family, or you can't do every day without being able to have some sort of balance, whether it's family friendly foods, or being able to have a drink on the weekend, or just enjoying your favorite treat. That is life, and that's what life is all about.
Do you know, when I first started flexible dieting, one thing that I enjoyed more than anything,
I know what you're gonna say.
Birthday cake.
Yes, I knew it.
So for years and years and years, when I was dieting, every single family birthday, so I'm one of 5, so there is a lot of birthdays.
So many birthdays.
And we sort of all get together as a family. My family is super family orientated. And someone's mum would always cook, and there would
Your
be,
mum
my mum would always cook.
The best
cook.
Yeah.
And I never enjoyed her food. I never got to sit with my family and eat
No,
normal
I
food. I always
remember.
ate like out of a Tupperware container or something that I'd prepped myself. And I never had birthday cake.
And her nana would bring the best,
best
sponge
sponge.
cake, sponge and cream.
Yes.
Like, think of like the perfect birthday
perfect
cake.
birthday cake.
And we could never have a slice.
No.
Like, never because I was
Yeah,
always
because
there.
I was always there.
Yeah.
And then I remember when we started flexible dieting, we could just make it part of our
It was the
day.
best
It
feeling.
was our fat source.
And
it
you
was
know-
some of our carbohydrates for the day.
Exactly.
It was like, it was really refreshing to be able to enjoy food again and remove the anxiety.
And the best thing about it was we were still on track with our body transformation
Yeah.
goals. And it's just amazing.
So the first week that I ever started flexible dieting, I remember I was on 2,200 calories. I was a bigger girl then.
I was on 1,900
I was
calories.
2,200 calories, which was for fat loss. A, blew my mind. B, freaked me out. And then I, on top of that, had a meal plan that had ice cream in it. And I was like, surely this is, what sort of
She
stuff?
called me
I
crying.
had so much
Her
anxiety.
anxiety was up to you. She was in the car saying,
Yeah.
I can't do
can't do it.
this. I'm going to
So
go
dramatic,
backwards. And I was
so
thinking,
dramatic.
girl, we need help. We need to do
And
anything we can
it was
right now.
really like the last resort. So I remember
Yeah.
week one, adhered to this meal plan, stuck to my 2,200 calories, had ice cream every night, was living my best life. Got to the end of the week, I thought 100% I'm going to gain weight, although I was feeling quite good. Stepped on the scales, I was 1.5 kilos down. And
Yeah.
it had me from that day onwards. I was like, I'm marrying myself to flexible dieting and I will preach until the day I die about it.
Yeah.
But essentially, it does sound like a bit of a magic concoction, but it is a really simple science.
It's just a numbers game, guys. You can choose what you want to eat. We like to say you're a nutritionist. You've got these numbers and you can decide on whatever you like to eat, given that it hits these numbers. And based off what we said, you can't hit your numbers without getting the good stuff as well. So it's a very balanced approach.
We really live by the 80%
Yeah.
whole food, 20% soul food. And I think even just in life, it's a really good motto in terms of like that balance. You know, you don't have too much of anything. You don't have not enough
No.
of anything. It's just a really nice balance to strike. And I think mentally really refreshing as well. So on the mental side of things, building that relationship with food through removing the arbitrary labels of food as say good and bad and looking at them really wholesomely like as the body does. Protein, fat,
Yeah.
carbs. It is really refreshing. So I came from a binge eating background myself. So pretty much I was a super, super restrictive dieter, super restrictive. And then maybe like every couple of weeks or once a week or once a month.
You
I
get
would-
3 scoops of Messina.
Yeah, but that wasn't really the issue. It was like what I would have after the Messina for the whole night.
Yeah. Oh,
and then the
yeah.
weekend, because
Yeah.
I would write that off as
Yeah.
well. And it, from a numbers perspective, threw me out of whack because that surplus day was enough to counteract all my deficit days, restrictive dieting. And then mentally as well, it was like this on-off yo-yo cycle, which I know a lot of females go
Yeah.
through. And then for Amal was really anxious.
I was fearful of
when
food.
it came to food.
So for me, like, I was the girl that would go to sushi and I would order sushi and I'd pick off
out the
every
grains,
single
right.
rice grain and leave it on the plate and eat the seaweed and the inside. And it was because I was fearful of carbs. I was that person that thought carbs made me fat. And for me, the biggest milestone in my life, you know, coming from a Lebanese background, was being able to eat bread again after so many years of giving it up. I remember eating a sandwich and it was a ham sandwich and I ate the bread and I was like, this, like, I know people will say, I don't even like bread and I don't like pasta and I don't like rice. Everyone loves carbs.
Yeah.
You just train yourself not to love it because you think you can't have it.
That's so true.
And-
I feel like you get really in touch with your senses
Yeah.
on your flexible diet
Yeah.
as well. And like a lot of things that, you know, I thought I was told by my coach that I was carb sensitive. So she'd cut.
This was a clean eating
This was
coach.
my clean eating coach. So she cut all my carbs and then told me that I was sensitive to carbs and I couldn't have them and still optimally lose weight. So they were gone out
No
of my
one is
diet.
sensitive to
And then I was
carbs.
like, well, I don't really like carbs anyway. Girls, everyone loves carbs.
You
We
love
all
carbs.
love carbs.
Yeah.
So that's a lie. And
Yeah.
I feel like when you start to flexible diet, you become really in tune with what you do like.
love to
And
eat.
then you're able to become quite intuitive.
Yeah.
So not only are you sort of like opting for foods that you love and enjoy, but then you also start tuning into when you feel hungry and not just eating for the
Yeah.
sake of it, or not just eating uncontrollably, or not just eating because you feel like you have to on eat every 3 hours diet
Yeah.
plan or something like that. It just really... Mentally, it's a refreshing way of dieting.
Of course.
Because it's a diet that doesn't feel like a diet.
No, exactly.
And I think that whole conquering that relationship with food part has been sort of on top of the transformation results that Amal and I have achieved in losing 50 kilos together, is the fact that food is not at the crux of our existence anymore. It's just a part of life.
You don't think about it. You don't count down the hours of when your next meal is, or wake up having to run to the kitchen to eat. You don't think about it. I remember I used to post memes when I was a clean eater that said, sleep is like a time machine to breakfast. But like the way that people think when you're on a restrictive diet, or when you don't have balance, or when you feel like you can't have something, is so detrimental, and it's just not a good relationship with food. I remember speaking to someone the other day, and they were like, flexible dieting isn't for me because as soon as I get a piece of chocolate, I just want to eat the whole block. But what you don't realize is when you're given something every single day, you don't want any more than the small amount that you should be having, because you know that you can have this whenever you want. It's whenever you restrict yourself, you're like, I'm gonna eat a whole tub of ice cream, I'm gonna eat a whole block of chocolate. It's when you know you can't have it ever again that you go ham.
So true. So what a sort of typical, I guess you could say, balanced day looks like in the context of, say, one of our clients. I would say bacon and eggs.
Yes, bacon and egg muffin,
is a favorite. And then maybe for a snack, something like a YoPro yogurt with a piece of fruit, something that's like obviously high in protein, and then fruit, you've got your fiber there as well. For lunch, you could do something like a chicken wrap with salad and then a light mayo dressing. So that's one thing as well with flexible dieting that you do learn, is you learn to like sort of compensate and cut calories where you may have clocked them up before. So things like cooking in oil, dressings and sauces and things like that. They're things that you can...
Wraps that are higher and lower in calories as
you
well.
sort of start to understand food and what makes good and poorer food choices. I explained in the last video in the context of like buying an expensive handbag and sort of having your daily calorie allowance is like money in the bank. It's like you can go and buy an expensive handbag, but it just means that, you know, for that particular day, you might taper down your budget elsewhere. And then afternoon snack, you might have something like, you know, ham, cheese and tomato toasty, and then dinner, maybe steak and chips and some beans and broccoli.
I love fries.
And then for dessert, that's the fun part. So your 20% soul food. So
Skinny cow ice cream.
Skinny cow ice
cream bowl, chocolate bar.
Something like that.
So it's not having all these fun and flexible foods throughout the day.
As much as you can.
It's a matter of just having balance where you can eat bread, you can eat, you know, fries, you can eat, you know, your ice cream. That's what it's all about. Yeah,
so I would say even for me personally, like one of my favorite meals is probably almost what it was when I was clean eating, which is like a piece of barramundi and vegetables, pumpkin and broccoli or something like that. Like I love food like that.
Same.
But then I also love chocolate. So I will have chocolate, you know what I mean? And even things like coffee, like everyone has a vice. People love coffee, people love alcohol.
I love skim mochas and I have that every day.
So it's just sort of like, if you have this budget, like what are you going to spend it on? Where is your most expensive items? Where, you know, do you need to cut back to save for those expensive items? It's just learning how to budget effectively and not blowing that budget.
Exactly.
Which was pretty stock standard old you and I. We just used to blow it, or we used to be too frugal. We just there was no happy medium. So flexible dieting, I think, has been the facilitator in not only balance for us, but just striking that happy medium.
Yeah, I agree.
So we hope that answers all of your flexible dieting questions. If it didn't, feel free to head to the Evolution page and you can check out some of our comparisons and just a lot of the mantras that we preach when it comes to nutrition.
Thanks, guys. Bye.